You have no analysis. Like what? Yo, push one in the chat if you can hear me. Oh, you know what? Let me see. Yeah, let me see. All right, cool. Got a confirmation, man. Thank you for the confirmation. You know, I don't even need to do a monologue or I shouldn't do an intro for that matter. Here's what I'll say to this, man. I was just over there at AB Media's, right? And one of the things that I find interesting is that BGS only pops his head up in safe places. Okay. Whether it's his channel or somebody else's channel, where he can get protection. Okay. He came up on the panel. See, AB Media is trying to do a reaction stream to the low information voter series, which was posted today. We did this over the weekend, but we just posted it today. The low information voter Z was a stream that AB Media was on 2 years ago. Okay. Because they're not going to go through the material like they should. Because if they did, it would embarrass them. Okay. AB Media was on a stream that we did the day after the Coliseum, which was on a Saturday. Okay. This was on a Sunday. AB Media sat on the Coliseum and talked about how bad Biden's numbers were, right? And I'm no defender of Biden. I'm just making a point. Now, we did the fact check, and the fact check proved that AB Media was wrong, right? You can go back and watch the stream. AB Media sat up on the panel and basically tried to make it seem as if he's agreeing with us when he was disagreeing with us the night before. We had him on our panel. Now, we didn't talk over him, we didn't disrespect him, and we didn't, you know, mute his mic or anything like that, which is what he did to me. He sat on that panel and essentially, for, just a quick summary, he sat on that panel and said the way he identifies the left is based on universal health care. Okay. Now, once you get further into the stream, where we're asking him really basic questions, what he tried to do is say, as an independent voter, he doesn't believe in taking sides, but he voted for Trump. So why did you take a side then? Right? So now, when it's time to ask AB Media about what's his stake in the independent vote and the politic, he said universal health care. Well, wait a second here. Didn't you just say at the beginning of the stream when you got on that the very things that you identify the left with, you support all of that? But then you vote for a party that votes against your interests. So not only do you vote against your own interests, you vote for a party that votes against your interests. But then you say that the Black Brain Trust is butt hurt blue no matter who. Well, wait a second here. All the things that you list as being your vested interest as a voter, it was actually Kamala Harris who upheld those ideals. If you go back and look at the White House's website, okay, and her campaign. Now, I'm not saying he should vote for her. I'm saying what he identifies as leftist politics, as progressive politics, he votes against. Okay. Then he goes back on his channel and makes it seem like, oh, yeah, these guys over here just butthurt. But if you actually listen to that stream and listen to how irate he becomes and how indignant he comes at the questions that we're asking, which are really basic questions, he's the guy that's butthurt. The only reason he voted for Trump was because of Trump's testicles. He said this on the stream. That's not me making this up. So what BGS is trying to do is run interference for AB Media because AB Media can't defend his own arguments. And neither can BGS. That's why BGS knows not to get on the panel when we're on there. That's the reason why I stopped going to Art Newstall's, because Art Newstall was allowing this sort of misinformation campaign on his channel to continuously be propagated every single week. And they ran it week in and week in, week in and week out. That's one of the reasons why you don't see code breakers over there. Okay. People got tired of the misinformation. So I started to do the low information voter series. I've explained this in today's video. The point that I'm bringing up here is this. These guys could not look at a map to save their life. BGS talks about being, studying geopolitics for 30 years. Where did he go to school? The International House of Pancakes? Like, there's nothing geopolitical about BGS at all. There's nothing domestic politic about BGS at all. That's why he had to have certain people on his panel to look at the maps, because BGS couldn't look at a map to save his life. He has no idea what he's looking at. He said it's based off of polls. It's not based off of polls. Those are actual voter numbers. That's why you see the 270 to win. Those are electoral votes. Those are not polls. But see, when you're low information, that's how you look at politics. Memes and sound bites. You never see us use Savvy Savs, a whole divester. Okay, this is a whole divester who does not have black men's interests at all. Because if she did, she would have married a black man. She has no interest in black men. But these guys propagate her on the panel every single week and don't even understand that she has no interest in black men, okay, and black males' issues. Because if she did, she would have married one. Okay, she has no interest in that. But that's the sort of sources that they utilize. She's an unvetted source. She's not even a delegate within any party. Okay, that's why you don't see her being guest featured on anybody else's panels. She can only stay on her own panels. She's not a credible source. But when you have to leverage podcasters as your only source and you can't look at a map to save your life, that's the outcome. Okay? That's the outcome. Get on a panel, make a whole bunch of noise, and can't actually defend any argument and just yada, yada, yada your way through the whole entire discussion. That's all BGS does. BGS knows what happened in 2020, okay? He had Craig the tech guy on the panel, and I don't even want to go into all this, but this history is really important because BGS didn't cover politics like that before, okay? BGS couldn't look at the map, so he had to have somebody come up there and look at the map for him. The map is the most important thing. All this other commentary doesn't matter. You have to know how many electoral votes you need to win. You had to know where those districts are that each candidate was going to be strong in. You had to know what the issues of the day are going to be on the ballot. When they put abortion on the ballot, what happened? It was overturned, right? So despite what the Supreme Court had said in 2022 during the midterms, once it got put on the ballot, women voted against it. So how can you sit up here and say that the Black Brain Trust got it wrong when all we're doing is using the actual numbers that's been available? This is public knowledge. This isn't, some podcaster saying all of this. This is the actual numbers. And you're trying to argue that, oh, you guys just got it wrong. But if we got it wrong, where's your analysis? You have no analysis. For somebody who's been studying geopolitics and politics for this long, why is it so difficult for you to look at a map? Why is it so difficult for you to look up what the issues of the day is on the ballot? All these problems, all these gripes that AB Media had with the Democratic Party, he never takes that to the Republican Party and he votes for them. So all the universal health care that Democrats actually fought for, right? It was Republicans that voted against it, almost 10-1. And he voted for the party. So he put the party above his own interests. That's what makes you a low information voter. But you don't even understand all of that, right? You vote for Hillary Clinton, you vote for Trump, you got nothing out of either one of those, and then you pretended like somehow Democrats did you wrong. No, you had no idea what you were talking about. That's really what it comes down to. Okay? That's really what it comes down to. You voted for Trump based on the size of his testicles. You said this yourself on the panel. That's why we clipped it in the first place. Okay? There was nothing within Trump's agenda that you can quote that would serve black men's interests. That's why the only thing you can harp on was the size of his balls. You said this out of your own mouth. I'm not making this up. Now you're trying to pretend like, oh yeah, oh, the butt hurt blues, the butt hurt blue, all that little singing and dancing. That's what the manosphere has turned into. A butt dancing space. That's why you don't see these guys covering any sort of detail in politics. That's why you don't see BGS really going into maps or anything like that. BGS will never come on a panel and debate me one-on-one. He'll never do that, okay? When I was up there on Art Newstalls, I was trashing him every single time. That's why he had to get me up off of it. Okay, same thing with, I don't even want to bring in code breakers and nothing like that. I just want to make sure that people understand the history in the space, that when it comes to politics, BGS has no idea what he's talking about, man. If you're taking advice from a guy like him on politics based off of memes and sound bites, that's low information. This is not me making this up. There's a whole entire category of politics that is about low information voters. And the problem with the black manosphere, it has not improved its understanding of political literacy and civics and government since its inception in the space. AB Media voted in 2020, skipped the midterms, and only came back in 2024 to vote and wants to have a conversation about politics? Really? You live in Indiana. That's a Republican-controlled state, and it's been that way probably since your whole entire voting life. And yet you're pretending as if Democrats have something to do with your problems. You don't make any sense at all. You talk about more reasonable government. Reasonable government? Have you looked at Indiana's track record of governance? What world do you come from, man? What world are you from? BGS lives in California, doesn't choose a side. How logical is that for you to even come on the panel and try to discuss politics at that point? You don't hear any of these guys since January 20th of this year to talk about the 19-point agenda, the 18-point, whatever that agenda is that TSR Johnson has facilitated with those guys over there. Do you see them going to Republicans talking about that? Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, you don't see them talking about that at all. But when Democrats were in office, these guys were all about, somebody got to talk to Ice Cube. Is Biden going to talk to Ice Cube? Nobody's talking to Ice Cube, okay? Nobody. Now these guys want to pretend like, they've always been, politically informed and whatnot. It's all cap, okay? It's been cap. It's been cap. Listen, the only thing that the Black Brain Trust has tried to do, and I can't speak for anybody else, is we tried to keep you informed on what the facts were. That's it. Everything that we pulled was straight from the government's website. It's not like we made this up or something. We pulled this straight from the government's website. So to say, AB Media got on that panel, it said, I'm not going to lie, the numbers look good. So where the fuck did you get your information from in the first place? How did you come to that conclusion? Well, people are not feeling as if the economy's doing good. Well, wait a second here. You live in Indiana. Why isn't the economy doing good in Indiana? Let's go back to 2018, 2017. When Trump came into office, he tried to strike, the first deal he tried to strike was the carrier deal. Remember that? how he was going to bring manufacturing back to Indiana, right? And they took that $1 billion deal and they was there temporarily for like 9 months and then they took off and went to Mexico. See, the manosphere doesn't want to cover that. You know why? Because it contradicts everything that they have to say about their politic. They don't want to cover the facts. Those are the facts, okay? BGS is never going to cover that type of politic. All he's going to do is play C-SPAN, which if you're playing C-SPAN, that's like Sesame Street for politics, okay? That means that you have to actually sit down and watch somebody else, demonstrate what the politic is because you can't do it for yourself because you're inept in that area. Which is fine. If you don't do your homework, that's your business. But you can tell who did their homework when they were in school. And based off of what's happening in the manosphere right now, a lot of guys didn't do their homework. Okay. That's why they congregate with each other and talk about the same thing over and over. Brian Snow, Snowman, whatever his name is. All he does is he talks about, he adds memes and sound effects, like the dude from Police Academy, with the bullhorn, right? Always making sound effects and stuff like a ventriloquist, meow, meow, like Tom and Jerry or some shit like that. That's all he adds to discussion. He never adds anything of value, but he stayed keeping the Black Brain Trust in his mouth. It's like, dude, one, you've never been on our panels, and two, you don't add any value to the conversation. So why are we even engaging you? Why are you even up on the panel other than to do ad libs like Flavor Flav with a clock around your neck? Trying to raise money, begging for money in the chat. Like, come on, cut it out, man. Don't make me go in on you, man. I embarrass you. Anyways, I just want to make this really clear. The Black Brain Trust has never tried to sell anybody anything. We never asked for money about anything. We don't go behind the wall about anything, okay? Everything that we talk about is upfront. We put all the facts on the table, and these guys can't handle it because they don't like the facts. The facts contradict any position that they take. That's why BGS is always running around talking about Swiker. That's the only entry that you have into politics is through somebody else's politic. Why don't you actually talk about the issues of the day that's on the table? Worrying about Jasmine Crockett when you don't even live in Texas. You don't even vote for her. She has nothing to do with your state. You live in Indiana, you live in California. How are you bothered by Jasmine Crockett? How logical is that? And like, why are you bothered by Jasmine Crockett when you got Black men in the Republican Party that are voting against Black people's interests on a daily basis? You think John James out in Michigan and Wesley Hunt out of Texas and Byron Donalds out of Florida, you think they're holding Black men's interests? Nigga, if you don't get the fuck out of here, y'all niggas are clowns, man. Y'all niggas are clowns. As a matter of fact, you didn't even know that any of these guys were in the Republican Party. Okay. And none of them are getting boosted by Trump at all. No cabinet positions, nothing. Okay. I'm the only one. In fact, the Black Brain Trust is the only channel in the manosphere that really did an analysis on this a couple of years ago. You think old man over there was doing that? Hell no. He was too busy, doing his ask me anythings when he knows nothing. He knows not to get on the panel and actually have a political debate with me. That's why every time I got on Art Newstalls, he would try to come up there and be disruptive because that's the only thing that he can do is disrupt. He has no actual analysis on anything. Okay, this guy was worried about this time last year. Okay, go back to Art Newstalls, Artists on the Spot. I think it's like episode 251 or 252 or something like that. Okay, when Joe Biden dropped out and he endorsed Kamala Harris, okay? And they were worried about World War III, right? BGS get up on the panel, worried about World War III. You got Trump dropping bombs right now over Iran and positioning nuclear submarines with nuclear capabilities, and you don't hear BGS talking about that at all. Know why? No Democrats are in office. And this is coming from a guy who says that he's an independent. He don't believe in taking sides. That's for pedestrians, right? No, you're the real pedestrian. You've been a pedestrian. That's why you can't look at a map. That's why you don't talk about the things of substance. That's why you have to focus on C-SPAN. You're the pedestrian, okay? You're the guy who has to rely on somebody else to do the work for you because you don't know what you're talking about. Every time we dropped a link, you would never come up. Know why you don't want to come up here? And none of your other guys would come up? Because they know better. Okay. The only guy on your side that came up here was Black Ooze Strikes. And Black Ooze Strikes only came up 1 or 2 times. And to his credit, he stood firm in his position. He took a side. Okay. He voted for Trump. He got nothing out of it, but he voted for Trump anyways. Okay. What you all have to understand is this, man. A lot of these dudes in the space are leveraging the grievance of white men's issues for their own politic. Okay. Because a lot of these guys in the space came from the white manosphere and they are mad, for lack of a better description, because white manosphere is not fucking with them like that. Okay. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't be leveraging, you wouldn't be trying to leverage the Republican Party who works consistently against black men's issues. Makes absolutely no sense. There's not one elected Republican right now in Washington, D.C., whether it's Tom Cotton or Lindsey Graham or any of these guys who have any vested interest in reparations for black men. Okay. You know how we knew this? When the black farmers were trying to get their reparations in the first Trump administration and in the second Trump, in Biden's administration. Who consistently voted against that? The Republican Party. Now, AB Media, admittedly himself, voted for the Republican Party. Not because he can get anything out of it, but because he thought it was the lesser of two evils. Go back and listen to that stream. You got to listen to that. That's not me making this up. All of this, everything I'm telling you right now is facts. It's all facts. This is all facts. That's why I clipped the videos. That's why I started doing the vote information voter series, because a lot of these guys would never stand on what they say. They would just come out here and be like, well, I don't think that Kamala Harris is qualified to be governor of California while she was already the vice president of the United States. You niggas don't make any fucking sense, man. You niggas don't make no sense. She won California 3 times. How can you say that she wouldn't be governor? I mean, it's such a, I mean, the lunacy behind these statements. You have to be, missing a, few fries short of a Happy Meal to make a statement like that. It's ridiculous. It's the equivalent of saying that, Rick Scott out of Florida, who was the governor, wouldn't be able to become a senator out of Florida because of what? He already won Florida twice. Why suddenly would he not win the Senate position? That doesn't make any sense. So what I'm saying here is a lot of these guys can't handle the fact that the Black Brain Trust is the arch nemesis to low information. Okay. BGS knows not to get on his panel. In fact, only thing, he even blocked us on the Master Teacher Response. He even blocked us on there. That's how weak he has become. Okay. He knows better than to come on our channel because we destroy him every single time. He knows that. Actually, let me drop the link. B just knows, okay? Politics is not his thing. He knows that politics is not his thing. He knows better. The only time he covers it is if it's Swiker or it's C-SPAN. Nigga, we don't do Swiker, we don't do C-SPAN, and we definitely don't do Sabby Sabs, okay? Nigga, if you're leveraging Sabby Sabs, if you're leveraging memes and sound bites, you're already done. You're already done. And what kills me is this. We were very respectful to AB Media when he came on our panel. You know what he did the day after? He went and fired up a live stream on his channel It said that we, the Black Brain Trust, attacked him. In fact, I had to do an addendum on the Black Brain Trust to correct the record. In fact, let me share my screen real quick. Let me share my screen real quick because I have to tell the truth because this is what happened. Okay, because a lot of folks be lying on us. Uh, let me see. All right, let me share my screen real quick. All right, let me know if you can see my screen. Hey, what's going on, Nicole? Yeah, push one in the chat if you can see my screen. All right, here's the deal, right? You see this right here? Quick addendum, open chat 93. Okay. I had to do an addendum because AB Media went and lied on us. Okay. He went on his channel and said that the Black Brain Trust attacked him when that never happened. Okay. And actually, here it is right here. Open chat number 89. Okay. Biden and the economy at AB Media. That's the one where AB Media got on the panel and we asked him those very basic questions. He couldn't answer those questions and he basically crashed out on us. Okay. If you don't believe me, go back and watch that video I uploaded today. I put all this stuff on the record for a reason because what's happening in the manosphere is that guys are getting away with not having to be accountable for what they say when they try to pass it as factual information, right? Or they try to take a very strong position on something that clearly has no merit at all, right? That's what's been going on. So I had to do a quick addendum to correct the record that, hey, this guy's lying on us, okay? This guy is lying. He's lying about the fact that we are butthurt blue no matter who. No, he's the butthurt guy, okay? He's butthurt. Let me say this again. AB Media lives in Indiana, okay? A conservative controlled state, and it's been conservatively controlled his whole entire life. Mike Pence served 2 terms in Indiana, okay? Who voted against the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, okay? The very care that he claims he wants to see Democrats fight for, Republicans themselves are voting against it. And he votes Republican 2 times in 2020 and in 2024, but is blaming Democrats for not fighting hard enough for issues that he claims he's interested in that the party he is voting for is voting against. Yo, you can't make this up, man. You cannot make this up.
He said it himself.
That's what I'm saying. He said all of this on the panel, and they're trying to make it seem like we made this. You guys were just wrong, wrong, wrong. Wait a second here. AB Media said all of this stuff on the panel. Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you addressing this? You know why you're not addressing it? Because it contradicts the your whole entire position for being on in the manosphere in the first place. All you're doing is causing political sabotage for black men across the spectrum. Because you have to push misinformation in order to do your content. You can't do your content on facts. If you had to do your content on facts, you wouldn't be here.
That is very true, and this is all has been based on misinformation. It's the only way they can push their points, and then scream and then yell when you get on there
Yeah.
to try to jump you, move you off. I listened to this. I said the facts are too strong. I understand the reaction from today's brain trust drop. I understand that. I actually understand why they're responding the way they are. I understand. Very hard to come back from that one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the other one, right? Open chat number 94, right? And I shouldn't even drag this is not so much as politics, but it is politics. BGS was on Code Breakers about a year and a half ago. Okay. And I'm just saying this because this is consistent with the dialogue for today. And tried to say that Jackson State was run like a gynocracy. Okay. Because of what happened with Deion Sanders leaving as coach. It was run like a gynocracy. This is a guy who's never entered college, who's never been to an HBCU, who didn't even know that Jackson State was an HBCU. Okay, it says that it makes, but he's politicizing HBCUs without taking into consideration that the HBCUs like Jackson State and a lot of them in the South that are land granted have been thwarted by conservatives. See, this is what I'm saying. When conservatives are actually screwing black men over, you don't have anything to say about it. But when it's Democrats, you somehow try to, when Democrats are in power, you try to make it seem like, it's butt hurt blue, vote blue, no matter who, all this stuff, when in fact, all of the interest that's in that 19-point agenda and other interests that allegedly AB Media had only comes out of the Democratic Party. But he doesn't think that participating in the democratic system is a worthy strategy to get those issues across the to get those issues achieved, right? He doesn't believe in that. He believes that voting Republican who vote 9-1, 10-1 against your issues is a winning strategy. This is phenomenal that you could even think like this in the manosphere. Thugtician, Captain Solo, Mayor of Blacktown, none of those guys would have ever, from 1.0, the real manosphere, none of those guys would have ever supported any of those ideals. Okay. And I'm talking about the old school black male space, not this what we're doing with today. Those guys back then who were heavy hitters in content creation knew that those ideas would never fly, in the space. That those ideas just didn't make any sense, right? I don't even know if Thugtician is even still alive for that matter. But the point of the matter here is that conceptually speaking, in this space, you have black men who are toting white men's issues as their issues. That goes against their own issues.
I mean, we've been seeing some of this craziness for a while. Let's talk about this Ibmore for a moment, okay? With Ibmore, Mike, what does Ibmore stand for again?
Introspective Black Men of Reform.
Introspective Black Men of Reform. They came out of the supposedly out of the white manosphere. Why did they separate from the white manosphere? Because the white manosphere, and even when we look at the whole white, let's say men's rights groups, they were very much anti-black, and they were looking to separate from black men, and that's where many of them who came up, who decided to go the immoral route, if we're going to talk that, left because of the racism they were getting from those guys who wanted white spaces. So they
That's
felt so they knew they couldn't really jibe with them because these guys were separating this from a racial perspective. Now they're coming back over to this and saying that these guys and so forth are somewhat of our thought leaders here and so on and so forth. We're in league with these guys when they stepped off from that originally because of the fact that they didn't want you around based on your race and position. Unbelievable.
that's a good point that you bring up. I didn't even think about that initially, but Thugtician saw that back then too. That's why he was
Yeah,
over on this side,
he
right?
did.
He called that out back in 2008
He did. He
that you
did.
that there is no working with those guys over there. That there's no way you can work with those guys because they were so charged up for a race, especially on the emergence of Obama, tying this all back into the politic. Because of the emergence of Obama, that is what separated black men from a lot of those a lot of those spaces from over there. But me personally, I have never been a part of those spaces, but I understand that other people come through different venues and whatnot and walks of life. But I'm just saying that the idea that you can vote Republican and live in Indiana and blame Democrats for all your problems is the crux of vote information. It's the crux of it.
It's unbelievable low information when you let's look at Indiana. Let's look at its state legislature. Who runs that?
All
Because
conservative.
uh, we know that the federal dollars that come down from the federal government come to the states and are dispersed by way of the legislature that then goes to your various cities, townships, and so forth. But that's how that system works.
Hmm.
That's how that system works. So if your state is run by conservatives, if you will, if you want to call them that, how what's going to be the end result? What's going to be the end result there? That's why you see the ACA in some of these places did not did not take in some of these things. Didn't take. Didn't take.
In fact, even going beyond Indiana, think about who runs Ohio right now. Mike DeWine, I think that's his name.
Yes.
Wasn't he the one that came out last year telling Trump and telling Republicans to keep, put a lid on it with all that eating cats and dogs?
Sure
What
did.
he
Because he knew what the facts were. He knew what the
he
facts were.
he could not govern. He could not govern his state as a Republican, as a conservative, if you have this outside meddling coming in with misinformation. He knew that. He knew that the disinformation campaign that was being run was contradictory to what he was trying to achieve. And once you got those folks on the record, you started to realize that, oh, this is actually true, that these people are here legally and it benefits the workforce and it adds value to the economy in Ohio. But you didn't hear the Manosphere covering that. No, why they didn't cover that? And the only one who actually covered it to his credit was Black Uru Strikes. He's the only one who actually stepped up and said something on the panel. But that's why you don't see Uru over there anymore, right? He don't really go over there anymore because you can't really rock with that. But old
Yeah.
BGS was pushing that narrative really hard, right? No, Democrats, vote blue no matter who. You guys got it wrong. He was pushing all of this stuff. He was pushing a disinformation campaign against the Black Brain Trust, even though the Black Brain Trust was right with the data. Okay. Now, BGS is trying to say that the map is based on polls. I'm sorry, but how many electoral votes do you need, Nago, to win an election?
You need 270 exactly.
Is that based off of polling?
That's not based off of polling whatsoever. That has nothing to do with polling, in fact.
It's one of the strangest things I've heard all day. But that's what we're dealing with here.
But he also said, I don't have to go to get any information on polls for me to say what I'm saying. I know how the system works, so I can just say it. He said this tonight, and I listened to it.
Absolutely.
Said it. Over talking you while you were telling them what the deal was. I sat there and listened to it and said, this is beyond anything I can deal with realistically. This is madness. This is a madman talk.
Absolutely.
I heard it, Mike. I heard it. I don't know if you heard it because he was just running his mouth. Maybe you didn't hear him clearly. That's what this man said.
It was muting me. That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
It was muting me. But that's the thing, though. These guys can't actually have a legitimate debate on politics. They can't have a legitimate debate because it contradicts everything that they say. They would have to take down all their content. They know they would have to do that. They know they would have to. There's no way you could actually stand 10 toes down on what you're saying in the manosphere if you actually put the facts on the table. No way. Right? But this whole thing about paternity fraud, right? The manosphere is, working behind the scenes to get paternity. Remember all that? And we ran the clips back. Okay, we ran the tape back. Come to find out that the actual person who legislated the bill said that the majority of his support came from Black women.
Wow. And you played it, sort of played it right. It was unbelievable.
And you never heard anybody talk about paternity fraud legislation ever again in the manosphere. You see, we took those bullets out of the chamber. So now you got to play Russian roulette with this last one. Okay? Got to play Russian roulette with the last one. You didn't see him talk about Iran, Trump bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. You didn't hear him talking about, those nuclear submarines being repositioned in, a couple of days ago. You didn't hear him talk about that. Know why? Because Biden is supposed to be the guy, or Kamala is supposed to be the person, or the Democrats are supposed to be the people that you blame for all of this. Can't blame that on Democrats, right? Biden didn't bomb it. Even John Mearsheimer himself said, to Biden's credit, he didn't even get sucked into all that. Trump is basically flailing all over the place, and these guys have absolutely nothing to say about it. They don't even cover the politic at all. But they're pretending that heckling us is somehow adding value to a conversation. BGS adds zero value to any political discourse, and he knows it. That's why you don't see PhDs getting on his panel and backing him up on any of this. You're never going to see Dr. Tommy Curry come through the space. Dr. Tommy Curry is everywhere in the manosphere. I mean, everywhere in YouTube except the manosphere for a reason. Okay. Dr. Gerald Horne said the same thing last year.
Yeah, he did.
The manosphere is too messy. It's too messy to be around. Okay. It's too messy. Instead of actually covering the facts, he'd rather just, either ignore it or pretend like it never existed.
Well, people are pushing a narrative here. They're pushing a narrative. When you go back and you look at, Deion Sanders was run by the gynocracy. You have to really look at what was really being, what these guys are really pushing. I mean, they said this, Mike, maybe 2 years ago, but this is what was said. The gynocracy, Deion, I don't know, Mike. I'm just saying when I listen to some of this, it's amazing. But they're pushing that narrative, and that's it. That's all they're trying to push. When you come over and debunk that gets in the way of that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. Credibility, it becomes a problem. So you have to be looked upon as someone or you have to be somehow, uh, for lack of a better word, debunked from their perspective for them to keep going. You have to become somehow illegitimate. I mean, we've seen a lot of legitimate stuff get illegitimated through false information. We've seen that. So these false information, misinformation, and all these campaigns have had a pretty devastating effect in the overall. So that's the name of the game, really, Mike. That's what we're looking at. Name of the game here is we're going to stick to the facts.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't have to come to this, but it came to this because that's what they brought it to. Okay. They created this problem in the manosphere, pushing misinformation. That's why you don't see certain people getting on those panels anymore. I've warned certain content creators about this is you're eventually going to have a reputation for hosting misinformation. I've told people this 2 or 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, we told them this. Tommy Curry don't want nothing to do with the space. He's everywhere on YouTube except for the manosphere. Okay. The only black male space that's supposed to have the interests of black men, he don't want nothing to do with it. Okay.
Well, they don't have the interest. The interest of black men is not here with these guys. There is no interest for black men besides Brain Trust, one or two other channels. That's about it. There is no interest for black men.
And the thing here is, they brought this upon themselves, right? That's all I'm saying. Like, you brought this upon yourself. All you have to do is stick to the facts. That's all you have to do. Oh, I don't have to look at a map. I don't need to look at the data. I don't need to look at any of that. You didn't look at anything because you can't look at it, man.
That he understands how the system works. He does not need to look at that. He said this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I listened to it and said, I can't believe what I'm hearing. I mean, I've heard so much craziness. It just keeps going. But he said this. What do you say to that?
Listen, I've watched him enough times. Okay. Like, I already understand, like here's the thing. I don't expect AB Media to be a political scientist. I don't expect that from him. But like MOT said in that stream 2 years ago to him, I want you to participate in the system so you get something out of it. This guy runs back and does a stream tonight and says basically vote blue no matter who. That's what you took from the conversation that we had with you? Really? That's the best that you can get out of the conversation is heckling? You're 40 plus years old. Listen, we got guys in the manosphere who are half his age and have more maturity than he does. So what does that say about the rest of the space? That there's a problem. And I would have to classify it as political autism. Okay.
Oh, I
I think that there are a lot of guys in this space who are politically autistic, okay, on the spectrum of having difficulty interpreting. I mean, go back and listen to that stream that we did on the open chat when we had AB Media up there. Very basic questions were being asked of him, and he kept saying, "Can you repeat the question? What the fuck don't you understand about that?" Right? And so, right, and I don't want to beat him down. I'm just making a point that the way these guys look at politics is it's almost like May was on the panel the other day with them, right? And they kicked her off the panel, or AB Media kicked her off the panel because she was breaking it down in his face and he couldn't handle it. Once she started going in on Republicans, kicked her off the panel, dropped her from the panel.
Okay. Yeah, but yet they want to call you you're a Democrat shill. You're a shill.
But that's the thing, though, Nagone. A shill is somebody who votes based on the size of a man's testicles. That's amazing. It's amazing
Oh
that you can
my
sit up here and say something like, "Oh, you guys are just shills. You guys are paid operatives." We're the paid operatives. You're juggling the president's testicles as a winning strategy to get
unreal.
universal health care. His
Un-
main his main stake in politics, right, was universal health care. But he voted for a man who's tearing apart Medicaid and Medicare right now as we speak and closing all these clinics, right? Because they don't get any more federal funding, right? All these dialysis centers and whatnot. Fresenius Care, one of the largest dialysis networks in the country.
and that has a big effect on black men. We got Dr. Phoenix here, Doc Phoenix. He's spoken about this openly many times with his health chats,
Mm-hmm.
and spoken on these issues. This is going to directly affect us. It will affect the black community, black men very very hard, even people like AB Media, and this is what they're actually voting against. And how do you make it? How do you make any sense out of that? How do you really make any sense out of that? How do you make any sense out of that? And then people look at us and say, "Hey, stop picking on this guy or doing whatever." What?
Yeah.
These are life and death issues that are affecting our community directly. These guys are going right for you, and you're supporting that? Yeah, Doc, what do you say, Doc? It's just worse than that. Doc Phoenix knows the deal. He's sitting there, he's balls deep in this shit. He knows exactly what's going on. And these people are sitting back here making these types of statements and taking these types of positions. Are you crazy? You can't be serious. You can't be serious. And we're supposed to listen to this
Mm-hmm.
seriously? This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. Shonda H, another health professional in here. People who have knowledge who are dealing with this directly. This is life and death. That's what it is. And these are the kind of decisions these people are making these crazy statements, going against your own interests. Like I said, Mike, you can mention that book maybe we were talking about doing if you feel like it. I'm not going to mention that. This is let you speak about
Mm-hmm.
that, but this has to be looked at, and this is not a game. This is not a game. This is not a game. All right, and it will probably kill people like him later on down the line. It'll kill him at some point in time if he doesn't get the proper treatment.
Well,
Well,
besides the fact that it's a possible. Well, I shouldn't say besides the fact, but besides the possibility of it potentially killing him, it's the vested interest in the community itself. Like, how is it possible that you vote for a party that votes against all of your interests, and you sit on the panel and you heckle everybody else, and nobody in the manosphere says anything except for the Black Brain Trust? Nobody questions the legitimacy of this. I mean, right now they're in there talking about Stacey Abrams. You have to understand something about Stacey Abrams, okay? Georgia is a heavy conservative state. In fact, from South Carolina all the way to Texas, those are all Confederate states, for lack of a better description.
yeah,
Okay.
that's a Confederacy, that's for sure.
What Stacey Abrams did, and people don't, and these guys don't even understand this. If it wasn't for Stacey Abrams, you don't get a Warnock or Ossoff, and you don't get Biden. This is really important to understand. See, you guys are just looking at Stacey Abrams running for governor. You're not looking at how many people she registered to vote. You're not looking at how many people she was able to get on board who was not on board. She helped flip Georgia. That was unheard of.
Unheard of.
That was unheard of. Okay. In fact, Georgia is what led to the blue wall for Biden. Without all that heavy lifting that she did back then to galvanize the base, you don't get a Biden in 2020. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't look at a map and you don't understand who the players on the ground are and who you know, what districts and what wards were being flipped at the time, you're not having a conversation of substance. And so, to your point, as he said earlier when I was on the panel, that he doesn't need to look at maps, he doesn't need to look at data. If you're not looking at maps, you're not looking at data. What the fuck are you looking at, man?
Unreal. It's unreal.
What the fuck are you looking at?
You can't make these kind of statements. People listen to you. It's unbelievable. It's unreal.
To me, it's like, what the fuck are you looking at? At that point, you're just speculating on what you think is going to happen when you have no evidence to prove it at all. And so you wait until something does happen, then you say, oh, well, these guys came out after the fact, after we came out and had predicted it. What the fuck are you talking about, man? You couldn't predict something without data. How is it possible you wrote a graduate's degree, a graduate program's dissertation or a dissertation for a graduate program, right? That's what he said. He wrote a dissertation for a graduate program, but could not tell you one iota about the data and what the maps were doing. See, everybody was looking at the maps. Like he pulled up, you and MOT stream. I'm saying AB Media did this. He put up you and MOT stream about how you guys covered the map and how allegedly you got it wrong.
What?
Actually, yeah, go back and watch that. Right? You're leveraging historic information at the time. It's not a poll, okay? Electoral maps are not polls. It's a fucking map of electoral votes that you look at in order to determine what the outcome is going to be, okay? And I'll say this about Kamala Harris. If the map stayed the same for Biden, for Kamala, that it did for Biden, she would have won, okay? That's the only analysis that you have to work with is the map. Trump endorsed, I think, 7 out of 8 midterm candidates, and they lost. Okay? That's what they were looking at, is the map. But he's telling you, and you've heard this, that he doesn't need to look at a map. If you're not looking at the map, you're not looking at the data, what the flying fuck are you looking at, nigga? What are you talking about?
He said it. He said it. I heard that. I said, okay, I'm done.
Oh, yeah, he's... Listen, I thought that AB Media was be the poster child of misinformation, of low information, but he has proven that he is the poster child for low information. Remember that time on the Black Brain Trust when there was this guy who, I forget his name now. He said, I don't need water to make plants grow.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, remember.
Yo, man, we've had some strange people come through the manosphere, man. We've had some strange people come through the manosphere. And so what's important, for the few people that are watching this, what's important here is that when you do analysis, you have to have a baseline for where you're going to start from, what you're going to project to, and where you came prior, okay? You need to look at the trends of how voting patterns happen in the past, okay? That's what people are looking at. Well, at least that's what political scientists look at, okay? That Alan Lichtman used 100 years of data in order to determine the political outcome. He's only been wrong once.
Yeah.
Alan Lichtman's only been wrong once, but he's been right every single time up until 2024.
Correct. That's correct.
And this is a historian too. Alan Lichtman is a historian. If you look at his material, he's actually been more aligned with Black people than he has not been.
He certainly has.
Right?
Certainly has.
So, but this is what I'm saying. When you get somebody like BGS on the panel and he says the things that he says, he doesn't realize, like, you're on the record for saying what you're saying. You do understand that, okay? He really got perturbed when I brought up Angry Man, because that's really where all this starts from. When him and Angry Man got into it on the panel, and I didn't even want to bring all that up, but I had to have some kind of historic fact here. He could not look at a map back then. It's 4 years later, and he still can't look at a map. That's why he wants to avoid talking about maps and data, because then it would contradict anything he has to say going forward. Okay. All these guys worried about Jasmine Crockett, they don't even live in Texas. You got one dude living in California, one dude living in Ohio, has no idea that Jasmine Crockett didn't just get here. She's been in politics for probably the last 10 years,
Yeah,
at the
Jasmine,
very least.
she's no neophyte. She's not a neophyte. She's
Yeah.
been around.
She's been in politics for the last 10 years. So you're just now seeing her because your information comes through the lens of memes and sound bites. That's it. That's the height of your political intelligence. You're about as politically sophisticated as an eggplant, but you won't accept that because in your world you have to be the end all and be all, and you can't be that. Okay, you're never going to be that. At least not while the Black Brain Trust is around. You're never going to be that. We will always correct the record. Okay, we will always challenge you on those positions.
Yeah, Mike, but what about the election? What about the election?
Nah, nah, man. Like I said before, man. Anytime BGS wants to have the debate, and I said this last year, I'll put up 1,500, and I dare you and any of your subscribers to get on the panel and try to walk your way out of these talking points that you bring up.
I'll match you another 1,500. Easy.
Absolutely. Anyways, last thoughts, Nagone, anything you want to add?
So, Mike, I think you pretty much set the record straight.
All right, thank you for joining us, man. I hate to have these sort of impromptus, but I couldn't get my point across on that panel because they kept shouting me down, they kept muting my mic, and so I eventually left because there's no way that you're gonna have a conversation of substance with these folks over there. BGS knows he's not prepared to go toe to toe with me. Okay, he knows better. Okay, he knows better to get on the panel with me on equal footing. On equal footing, he's never going to win a debate with me. And if you think otherwise, put the money up. Put that money up. You think Kamala Harris won't win California as governor? Go look at a map, man. I'm sorry to tell you this, man. All right, man. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.
Hey, Mike, you still there?